the music that I chose. As you begin, I see that Professor is already in. Welcome to the space, Professor Kivuta Kibwana. Hillary, welcome to the space. Nelson, I see you. Let me try to change, to add you to the co-host and remove the other handle. I hope they're not going to mess up with it, because that's why I'm always logging with two handles, so that when they remove, when they interfere with the main handle, I can be able to co-host with the other one. So we have 3 more minutes to go. Before we do that, I would like to request you to share the link. I haven't also shared it, so that at least we can start with a good audience and avoid questions that might arise later. I also see Dr. Saisi Marasa, who is the chair of KDA USA, and we also have other diasporans already joined, and some also who will join. Okay, so let's do that. Let's share the link. As we do, Hillary and Nelson, kindly introduce yourself before we begin in 2 minutes' time.
Hey, Maj, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. This is Hilary Gondi joining from Canada. I'm a therapist by profession, and thank you so much, Prof. See you and everybody on board. Nelson, welcome.
Hi Marge, hi everyone. Hi Hilary. My name is Nelson Amenya. I am based in Paris, France, and currently I am an MBA student studying at HSC Paris. And I am happy to be here and to discuss this very wonderful topic because right now in Europe we only have 2 polling stations, so we need to have more. So it's a very timely topic.
Thanks, Nelson. And I also see Fabish from Indonesia. I see Mukile from the US. And I know many more are going to join. Let me just share the link. And then we can begin now in a minute time. Let's give our guest speaker, there's another guest speaker who's also coming on board. Let's give our current guest speaker a chance to introduce himself, although many people already know him. Professor, we're very privileged to have you on board. Kindly introduce yourself before we proceed. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Marge and Hilary and Nelson. I am a lawyer by training, former governor of Makueni County, and a professor of law, worked in national government, and now in kind of semi-retirement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So without further ado, I know it's still early, but let's just begin because this is a recorded session. Without further ado, I will introduce myself. My name is Marge. I'm an epidemiologist living in Germany. And of course, the topic regarding diaspora voting is very close to our hearts. And there have been a lot of diasporans who have been fighting for it for many years, for the rights to be, let me say, extended. They have given us the right, we have the right to vote, and the interpretation that the IEBC has is that they are going to increase it progressively. So the progressive increment is where the vagueness of its definition was what's causing problems. That is where we have, for example, in Europe, just 2 polling stations one in the UK and the other in Germany. So that means that the rest of the EU, actually, all of them would need to come to to Berlin to vote. The UK also has only 1. The US doesn't have sufficient voting polling stations, and I mean just the rest of the diaspora, they're not able to really exercise these rights. And for that, we actually need a voice, a legal expert, to walk us through what we would need to do for us to be able to legally implement in a way that all the embassies and missions abroad are actually legally gazetted to act as a polling station. And that's why we're having the discussion before today. So, Dr. Saisi Marasa, please introduce yourself, take the mic, and then we will proceed directly to Professor as he walks us through. And then all the diasporans can then ask questions here.
Yes, thank you, Marge. My name's Dr. Saisi Marasa. I'm the president of Kenya Diaspora Alliance USA. I am a scientist by training and currently work as a pharmaceutical scientist with the Food and Drug Administration here in the DC. Very timely topic. Thank you for hosting. Very, very, very interesting topic. We've been fighting for diaspora right to vote. And as you've introduced the topic, the progressive requirement by the Supreme Court for IEBC to register Kenyans in diaspora to vote has faced a lot of challenges. KDA USA, among other organizations, was involved in petitioning IEBC, and we've been even taking IEBC to court to realize this fundamental right. Happy to participate in this conversation, and we hope we can make significant progress to enable diasporans to actually exercise their democratic right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harry. So we give directly the mic to Professor. Professor, the question is, as we begin, would you kindly walk us through the legal process that we as diasporans would need to, to go through to realize this dream? Over to you.
Again, thank you very much. Strictly speaking, I think one must begin by saying that anybody who is resident, any citizen who is resident in the diaspora, citizen of Kenya, as well as in Kenya, they have actually equal right to the vote according to the Constitution. Because Article 38 of the Kenyan Constitution, which says that every citizen is free to make political choices, and this include Article 32, sub-article 2, 38.2, every citizen has the right to free, fair, and regular elections based on universal suffrage, underlined, and the free expression of the will of the electors for any elective public body or office established under this constitution. And that is the article which establishes, political rights to belong to political parties, to vote for them, to vote in elections, to vote in referenda. And when one looks at chapter, even before going to chapter 7 of the Constitution on representation of the people, when one again looks at 38 sub-article 3, this is what is provided, that every adult citizen has the right without unreasonable restrictions, underlined, without unreasonable restrictions, to be registered as a voter, to vote by secret ballot in any election or referendum, and of course to be a candidate for public office. And then chapter 7 on representation of the people begins by saying that the electoral system, again underlined, shall comply with the following principles. And the electoral system will include how the diaspora population will vote. I'm trying to put my phone on silent mode. So the electoral system shall comply with the following principles. Freedom of citizens to exercise their political rights, which I described earlier under Article 38. And again, universal suffrage based on the aspiration for fair representation and equality of the vote, again underlined. So that when one looks, at again the equality of the vote, the electoral system in its totality, ensuring that it supports the political rights of every citizen, whether they are resident in Kenya or abroad. And of course, the most critical part of the constitution regarding the diaspora vote, the direct constitutional provision, is the 81 E, which says that free and fair elections are by secret ballot. They should be transparent, administered and in impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner. So that if there is impartiality, neutrality, efficiency, then you cannot exclude the diaspora vote or prejudice it vis-a-vis the local vote. And Article 82 of the Constitution, 82 1 subsection 1C, talks about Parliament enacting legislation to provide, first of all, for continuous registration of citizens as voters, including, therefore, even citizens within the diaspora. And 82 1E states that Parliament will enact legislation for the progressive registration of citizens residing outside Kenya and the progressive realization of their right to vote. That is 82 subarticle 1E. And so the question and of course, these constitutional provisions are in terms of the IBC Act, the Elections Act, again, and the regulations. This indicate how these constitutional provisions now will be implemented via ordinary law. But of course, ordinary law cannot go against the Constitution. Now the question is, from 2010, when the Constitution was passed, when there was the first election under the Constitution 2013, then 2017, then 2022, that is 14 years later. And the question is, this progressive realization, when does it, because progressive must have an end at some point. It can't be progressive forever. And of course, that particular legal point, whether it is progressive realization of persons with disability in terms of how also they will be in government. So that progressive realization, the question which is begged is, for how long will the IBC, will the government in its totality prepare itself so that, like other countries, even in Africa, where the vote of those resident abroad, external voting is realized, when will IBC be ready? And you will, I think, Chair Dr. Saisi has mentioned the case of November 15th, 2013, by the late Justice High Court, Justice David Majanja, where when there was a challenge after Eugene Wamalwa, the then minister, said that the country was not ready. I think after some advice from IBC, the IBC was not ready to ensure that those in the diaspora could vote. I think there the judgment said that this is progressive, it is not automatic, instantaneous, and as a result, there was now a problem. There was a problem in terms of the right for the 2013 elections being guaranteed even in a minimalist situation. And of course, there was even the other hurdle of to be registered as a voter. you had to have just your passport, not ID. And, this was also a matter of contestation. And I remember, if I'm not wrong, Omtata also took a case to court to say that wherever you are, the ID is enough. It can't be said because you're abroad. You can't use the ID, but a valid passport. Now, in 2017, because exactly of the few polling stations abroad, as has been indicated, only 4,022 people registered from abroad. And in 2022, the recent elections, about 10,444 are registered. And so if the population of the diaspora is about 3 million, and if from those 3 million, those are 18 and above who can vote, even if we were to say it is half, probably more than a half, and we even say that the diaspora as like one, as let us even say it as 1 million voters. And of course, from the 3 million or the number, which is the exact number, and KDA would know, the associations would know, it would mean that there is a huge vote out there. In 2022, as I think has been hinted, the 10,444 were in 12 countries, and the polling stations were 27. And of course, if places like USA only 744 register, Canada 366, South Africa 958, Burundi 201, Rwanda 1090, Tanzania 410, Uganda 1411, South Sudan 977, Germany 314, UK 798, Qatar 1437, UAR. So those numbers are dismal given the population. It has been pointed out because of the distances. When we are, for example, I think the regulations by IBC said that, first of all, the voting is only presidential elections, and also that there has to be an embassy or high commission or consulate. And I think they're about 66 now. And yet, even when they're about 66 embassies and high commissions and some other consulates, each one of them is not a voting is not a registration place and a voting place. So at the very minimum, one would have to say that in every place where Kenya as an embassy, where Kenya has a high commission, as a consulate, at the very minimum, all those places should be places for registration of voters and voting. And there is no reason why they cannot have satellite places where they will reach out, just like they go, because one embassy may be responsible for several countries. So there's no reason why staff from a particular embassy cannot go to the outpost, so to speak, and again get registration and get registration of voters and see how as agents of the IBC, if they because they're made agents of the IEBC, how registration and even voting can happen. In my view, there is no reason why IEBC itself cannot, within the polling stations abroad, depending on the populations of Kenyans who live where, the IBC itself could make registration stations, polling stations during the elections, and then recruit people just the way it recruits people in Kenya. Recruit people so that the people carry out, those functions to make sure that, as we have tried to explain, through the constitutional provisions which are amplified in ordinary legislation, so that nobody's right to vote is compromised. And again, even Article 83, sub-Article 3, says that administrative arrangements for registration of voters and conduct of elections should not deny any citizen the right to vote. But even looking at the Kenyan diaspora policy, and the initial minister who was responsible for this was Amina Mohammed. Even there were, good provisions, like there should be a Diaspora Council of Kenya. There should be, even IBC itself should have a policy for this progressive realization so that it can show how this will pan out, and when we will not have progressive, when we shall have reached a point where anybody can vote, including, even postal voting, voting by proxy, e-voting, because in other countries like Americans who work here in Kenya, they are able to vote abroad, and actually sometimes they do voting in advance of the actual election, the election day in the states, and many countries, particularly in the mature democracies, have this kind of voting, so that nobody who wants to vote is not allowed to vote. Again, even the Kenya diaspora policy encourages associations of Kenya communities abroad who will interact with now the State Department of the Diaspora Affairs, so that what people in the diaspora, who we love them because they bring a lot of money to the country, maybe even in terms of contribution to GDP, they contribute more, even foreign exchange, than coffee and tea, tourism, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to their rights to influence how the country is going to be run, there is disquiet from the political class, because the political class believes that these people, and actually even academicians, there is, I remember there is one paper written 2015 by Beth Ellis Whitaker and Salma, where they say that the diaspora people in Kenya are not influenced by ethnic voting as their kith and kin here in Kenya. So the political class is afraid, because where elections are very close, and that is usually what happens in most of our elections, they are very, very close. The diaspora, if it is facilitated to vote according to the constitution, according to our laws, it means that actually it will most likely tilt the election. And that is the major fear. That is why, in my view, there is a problem of allowing the law to take its course and get the diaspora to be, to vote as is, and therefore, I don't know whether it is again time for like now the way in which the diaspora is involved in what's happening in this country. This is an issue now which must be revisited, so that this question of progressive realization, is tackled once more, to argue that now IBC must be ready for any citizen to vote and to facilitate that. I think I've talked quite a bit, and so maybe as we go on, and as also the other speakers are able to also contribute, then we shall continue to answer any issues that arise. But I wanted to, first of all, lay the basis of the legality and some of the issues why there is fear that the diaspora can influence the vote in a fundamental way. And that is why there are all these stumbling blocks to full realization of the diaspora vote. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Professor. Yes, for the submission. And as you rightly put it, we have been involved in the Kenyan matters. It is our homeland. At the moment, we saw a lot of support coming from the diaspora. We do not want to just be reactive.
Marge, we can't hear you.
Okay, Nelson, can you hear me?
You can't.
Yeah,
KDR?
yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah, can hear you much.
KDR,
KDR,
please.
I'm hearing you, but I can't hear Marge.
No, drop, then you come back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying we don't want, or a lot of diasporans don't want to be just reactive when something happens, but to also be able to, make a difference by being able to vote also. And that is why we are really trying to find ways of increasing the polling stations that we have in the diaspora. Nelson and Hillary, should you want to speak at any point, just open your mic. At this point, I'll give the chance to David Ogega, Fabish, and then Tony, and then Dr. Marasa, in that order. David, go.
Oh, yes. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I just want to chime in. First of all, I'm so happy again for this space. And I was listening. I believe that was Professor Kithure that just spoke. And I really want to echo a lot of what he said from a background standpoint. As we all know, we've been constrained so much in terms of participation. That needs not to be said or repeated. But I think the problem still remains that the structures in place at the moment, they're being manipulated, not necessarily because the law allows, because the system allows it to, but they are counter to the law. And in my understanding, most of you might not know, but maybe I should start by introduction. I had an organization called the Association of Kenyan Diaspora Organizations in the United States. We're one of those that actually participated and pushed so much with the rest of other organizations here for diaspora voting over the years. So in 2022, we were fortunate enough to invite the chair, Wafula and the CEO then, and everybody. They came to our diaspora conference in Seattle, Washington, and they announced from that venue that now the 9 additional countries have been allowed, and they would extend voting to all of us here in the diaspora, except, as you all recall, and I think it dovetails the subject matter to do with the polling stations, Chebukati, whom I'd known for quite some time, so we've been pushing this issue behind the scenes, even as public as we get. So he announced that you can only vote at the embassies, right? So, and then there's a caveat that in those polling stations, there has to be a diplomatic relationship. 2, in those countries, just as Professor ably alluded to, and then you can only vote in those stations. So, we went to Chebukati and said, Mukubwa, we cannot really, you can't even say that this expansive country as the United States is, for example, you can have people travel to just 3 polling stations in DC, New York, or what is it? I think it's Los Angeles, because even by law, it says that you're required, a polling station should not have more than 700 voters per polling station. I think that's Election Act 2011, Section 38A. So what is exactly prohibiting you from establishing more polling stations in other places in the country, in churches, just like you do in Kenya? And let people come to those polling stations. Chebukati responded to me and said, we're prohibited by those countries like the State Department. from holding or conducting elections in a Kenyan church in Atlanta, for example. That's where I stay. So, and there is no law that prohibits him, but yet they were willing to violate the very law that prohibits them from having more than 700 voters per polling station when there's none prohibiting them from expanding those polling stations to actually where the people live, the demographics in all over the country. So those of you in a position of authority back home in Kenya, please, we need your help to really push that issue. There's nothing in textual law or precedent or anything else that I'm aware of, unless I'm mistaken, that says that you cannot have a polling center. We cannot rent, let's say, a church, let's say a hall for that one day. If we rent it, really for that day, we own it as a Kenyan government entity. And unless prohibited, especially the laws in America, the way I know them, unless you prohibit it from doing something, unless there's a law that prohibits you from doing something, you're allowed to do it. And we live here. Some of us, dual citizens, whatever we are, but even if we're not, we still have that right to participate in whatever kind of activity that is not unlawful. Election, diaspora voting is not unlawful, wherever we're stationed. So I'm just saying this to make a point that, this is coming timely, but I just hope that we don't give them excuses. We don't give these people room to come up with all kinds of excuses why we're not able to vote, because the law does not say that. So I just want to chime in on that one. Maybe I'll have a chance to say one other issue. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David. And so just one question to Prof before he also chimes in on what David has said. The last time we had elections, and actually I was trying to find out from the ex-ambassador in Germany, Ambassador Molo, how we would go through, and his response was we would need to have any extra polling station gazetted. So the case that David is talking about, if David would decide, or would together with the embassy decide to have a church gazetted to be a polling station in the US, would that work, Professor?
I think that definitely would work, because I think, as Fabish has said, these countries where democracy is practiced, and even other countries on the continent, because Kenyans are everywhere, I don't think that they can say foreigners who want to participate in external voting are not allowed to exercise a democratic right. Whether one is a dual citizen, because if you're a dual citizen, you still are a citizen of Kenya, and you should be able, whether by marriage or by general registration or by birth, and then you're a citizen of another country, you are a citizen. And I don't think that it's true. These countries would say no, like when you get to a church or a community place, or any place. And if the government was willing, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would actually talk to any country where there are Kenyans, and any area therefore, and depending on any area where there is a demography, so that there can be a polling missions and so on, consulates. They can recruit, just like they recruit people here to be in charge of registration centers, polling stations, and so on. They can similarly do the same, even for abroad, and particularly with the cooperation of your organizations. So I think it is clear to me, and even if, for example, where you are, you ask the foreign, ministries whether this is something that would fly against their laws, then you would therefore build the case that it is not true that these countries have a problem with the church, with a community center, with a school, with whatever, depending on, of course, those who run those institutions saying they have no problem whatsoever. So I think that's a lame. Let me, say, in my view, it is a lame excuse, and therefore there's, like Fabi said, that manipulation of the structures and actually the fear of what would the diaspora vote mean, because even in the last election 2022, Raila, from the 6,017 votes cast, Raila got, I think there was slightly more than that, but Raila got 3,827 and the current president 2,190. So those are figures that people look at and they say, okay, if this is how the elections are going, am I jeopardizing my candidature if the diaspora is a major player? So I think the straight answer is, if, for example, through your associations, you are able to, in all countries where Kenyans are, you are able to say that most Kenyans stay in a particular place. Now, how many people there would want to register to vote? If there are more than 700 in that locality, let us say you have identified locality A, if there are more than 700, so it's necessary to have, more than one polling station, so that everybody who wants to vote is accommodated according to the numbers that you have in that particular area. And then you can also, therefore, discuss with the electoral commission, the electoral commission, or which is the IBC, and then say, here, this is the numbers we have, and because we have these numbers and so many are 18 plus, we will need, so many polling stations, so that there's public participation in terms of establishing the structure, so that this time around 2027, those who want to vote are not left out, and so I think with political will, this is not something that would not be doable, and so it is also how the diaspora now pushes this thing, because even voter registration is supposed to be continuous. Last time you were given 15 days, I think, 15 days to register to vote. And I think even those days may have been made less. I don't remember exactly. But again, the registration should be in such a way that you have time to be able to, to register and therefore to vote. And as I said earlier, even to explore other ways of voting, which are not necessarily physical. So that, because that happens in the world, so that therefore people can vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll have Fabish, Dr. Barasa, then KDR TV in that order, and then yes.
Thank you so much.
Can they answer also? Sorry, Fabish. As you come in, and also I know Prof has talked about this, that there is I'm coming 1 minute. All right. Fabish.
Thank you so much, Maj, and co-host Hilary, and our guest, Professor Kivuda. I think my question will be bended slightly, because when we talk of diasporans and we see that the number is huge, we are numbering more than 3 million. And I think only voting is not enough. What of a representation? Because we have seen even in our parliament, when the member of parliament, they are making policies. In most policies that they are made there, usually they don't incorporate, Kenyans living in diaspora, because also here we have issues that sometimes we need representations. Like I give you example, I live in Aisha, and actually I'm the coordinator of KIA, Kenyans in Asian countries. And like in Indonesia, we had a embassy that was officiated by the former president Uhuru Kenyatta. And we long time we did not have embassy here. We had a consulate that actually it was run by a Pakistani national. You see, we are Kenyans, but we have to seek services from a Pakistani national. And then later, Uhuru Kenyatta upgraded the embassy fully, and actually an ambassador was posted here. Last year, the current president downgraded again our embassy here into again a consulate. So you see, we have interests that need to be taken care of, but you see, government, they do their own things, and we don't have a voice. We don't have representation. So I don't know, Professor, whether there is a way we can seek that the diaspora as a constituency be given at least maybe 2 representatives, maybe one in the parliament and one in the Senate, so that the issues of diaspora in terms of policy making that can favor Kenyans in diaspora, they have a voice, they have a representative. I don't know whether that, would be able in law, whether in our constitution that one can accommodate us, or do we need referendum for that? And second thing also, we see that even in terms of that voting, now we have a lot of Kenyans in nations. When you go to the Gulf, you come to Malaysia, Thailand, we have quite a number of them that they are teachers there. And in this block of peninsula, we don't have a polling station. So I don't know also that what will be considered, in seeing which, and most countries also here, they don't have embassies. Some they have consulates, and one embassy can be serving like 7 countries. Like Malaysia embassy is accredited to about 7 countries, accredited to Burma, to I think Palestine, I think Palau, and other countries, the highlands there. Then number 2, what about of the agents? Because if we are voting for presidential, definitely there are political parties. And I don't know how, whether also we have to also to be having a way of engaging with the political parties, so that when it reaches the time of voting, also, every political party can be represented and can have an agent, so that diaspora and votes cannot be easily manipulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabish. At least the question about the agents in the diaspora that I can take. During the previous elections, we had each political party actually had their own agents, and they submitted their IDs. They got their, the cards that they need to use as representatives. So that was possible. It was done, that I know. But let's proceed to Dr. Saisi, then KDR TV, and then Professor can chime in answering all the questions. Dr.
Yes, thank you again, Marge. This is Dr. Saisi Marasa, the president, KDA USA. Thank you, co-host Menya and Hillary. Fantastic conversation. And I also want to thank our speaker, Professor Kivuta Kibwana, for being a great friend of diaspora. Whenever we reached out to you, Prof, you've always answered our call, and I want to thank you for actually participating in our concluded diaspora honoring Mwalimu Ngugi event just last month. Your sentiments were very well appreciated. Thank you so much for really stepping in and helping us when we need help, especially on crucial matters like this. I want to echo the sentiments Professor mentioned on where do we go from here. I think as a bare minimum, we should request, not even just request, but demand that all Kenyan consulates, embassies, be polling stations, and we need to add more as per the IABC Act as it allows. If in Kenya, a polling station is only allowed to have 700 registered voters, we should expect that to apply also in diaspora. And another thing, I wanted to echo also what Fabish has just said. Uh, I mean, it's hypocritical that the government is pushing for diaspora remittances and stuff, but they don't care about our rights. As a fundamental right, voting is very critical, and we should expect a government that is progressive to ensure that it's diaspora citizens are not disenfranchised. So we expect this as a bare minimum, that the government does everything, including appropriations to IABC, to ensure they register us in diaspora to vote. And not just vote, but I think this could probably a constitutional issue, is what Fabish was alluding to, that we need representation in parliament, either in the Senate and in parliament. We keep on saying diaspora is the 48th county, but in terms of representation, there's nothing about it. I know it's a constitutional issue. Maybe Prof can speak on this, or the lawyers in this space can speak to this. But I think it should be done. It's about time. We are such a major force that we should have representation in parliament. There are a lot of issues that are being pushed under the rug because when it comes to speaking on the needs of diaspora, we don't have a champion in parliament to champion for our interest. Lastly but not least, we've spoken about adding more polling stations. If I remember very well, in 2017, in this progressive registration, I think our hotel lobby in Dar es Salaam was registered as a polling station. And in one of our petitions, we actually cited this case, and we won that petition. So the issue about the IDs, either using the ID or the passport, we also had to petition, go to court with our meager resources. And IABC is very well oiled in terms of lawyers and funding. So they're spending a lot of money trying to challenge rights of diaspora to vote in court instead of facilitating. It's a shame. Lastly but not least, I know as part of the requirement for the Supreme Court case 2015, IABC was required to make reports to Parliament on the progressive realization of the right for diaspora to vote. But the last time I checked, actually from even 2017, IABC had not submitted any reports to Parliament. And these are the things we keep on asking. So I think this is a great conversation. We should push for this. And then if need be, demand for representation. Thank you so much.
Thanks. KDR TV, if you could allow Wakili Henry to speak. I think he just texted that he needs to leave, and then you go next, please. Okay.
That's fine.
Wakili, proceed.
Thank you, everyone. And I am so sorry that I have to go. I was excited to see my teacher and a great leader in my book, Professor Kibwana. My name is Henry Ongeri. You might remember me. I was chairman of KLSS when you were dean at Nairobi. And over the years, I have been leading the effort to see that our laws are implemented. I lead a movement that we call Kenya Diaspora Must Vote, because we believe that our constitution should mean something. The constitution provides the right of all Kenyans, including Kenyans in the diaspora, to vote. But for some reason, for the past 10 years or so, IBC has managed to scatter around that, and we still don't get what we think is reasonable representation. And I associate fully with the comments of Dr. Saisi of KDA, where we are saying it is not enough to just say, oh, show up in DC, show up in LA, and vote. I think in order for that right to mean something, we have to make it possible. I mean, for example, just for those of us who live in the US or work in the US, The US is a continent. The US is not a country. So how can you say that you have located one polling station in DC and another one in LA and another one in New York? How are the people in Iowa and Minnesota or Texas going to vote? It's just silly to. That just makes a mockery of what the law says. But my final thing about this is I'm glad that we are having this conversation. This is a conversation that we've had for many, many years, but no one has listened to us. And Dr. Saisi makes a wonderful point. The law is clear. Unfortunately, and I have to pause here for a second. The judge that made the decision that we have a problem with is the late Justice, now is late Justice Majanja. I disagreed with it. I think KDA disagreed with it. But the thing that all Kenyans need to pay attention to is how important the Kenyans who live abroad are to the nation, to the economy. And when we don't obey our own laws, then we create a situation where it's really anarchy. And I just want to appreciate everyone for participating in this. I think this is an important conversation. I have to run because I have a court hearing to attend. But I would hope that this conversation continues. But yes, if the diaspora is the 48th county, then we better treat it that way. And that means we have to have representation. That means we have to have a voice. That's all I was going to say. And thank you much. Thank you much for giving me the chance.
Thank you so much, Wakili Daktari Ongeri. Yes, we're going to have, after the call, we're going to have put points together and see the way forward. Looking forward to have all of you come together and work together also with Professor to see that we make a change in this. Thanks for dropping by. KDR TV, then Professor, and Hillary and Nelson, should you have something to say, feel free to open your mic at any time. KDR TV?
Thank you so much, Dr. Maj. Thank you so much, Professor Kivutha Kibwana. You are an icon. We love you. We expect to see more from you. Most of us were thinking that you would actually stand to be a presidential candidate, but unfortunately, I don't know. Let me not call it a tribal card, but we expected a wonderful leadership from your end, but you let us down. So let me give my opinion on this area of diaspora voting. As a media practitioner or a part-time media practitioner, I have been part and parcel of the agitation for the diaspora to vote. What Dr. Saisi Marasa is saying, what Wakili Ongeri is saying, I was part and parcel of the diaspora team that took the IEBC to court so that we could be allowed to vote. I can backpedal a little bit, and because I also sat down the Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga on this particular issue, and what he told me is that the laws are there, everything is there, the implementation is the problem. And then I also sat a couple of members of parliament. One of them is the chairman of the of the Kenya Airports Authority, Mr. Kositany, about the plight of diasporas to vote, and he did take a question, or not really a motion, but he asked a question in parliament pertaining our voting rights. Fortunately enough, come 2022, at least a few of us did vote. But unfortunately, we were disenfranchised because most of us could not manage to travel all the way, especially from me. I'm in Chicago right now. People from Minnesota, you taking a ticket just to go and cast a vote and come back. You are a family of 5 or with your friends. It was not really possible. Wonderful people did manage even to hire a vehicle. They had to drive for a day and a half, and then a day and a half coming back to their village. To their cities. They did manage to vote. But I've heard Professor Kivutha Kibwana talking about as having like churches or areas where can be treated as a voting center or booth. We did a wonderful pilot project last year, whereby the One Voice Consortium spoke or arranged with the Diaspora Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, or whatever they call it. It's a little bit difficult for me to tag the two together, but they call it the PS for, I mean, the, how do I call it? The Department of Diaspora Affairs. We did a wonderful pilot project whereby at least 12 cities in America managed to bring the immigration officials to come to their cities. And one of my city, my city was part of it. Iowa was part of it. Texas was part of it. Seattle, Georgia, so many cities. Florida, where even very few Kenyans are, did get a chance to have their to have their passports renewed, or to register or to renew their identification cards. So this is something which can actually be done pretty very well. Even those churches, people volunteered. I volunteered a whole week to be the chauffeur for the for the migration officials who are there. So I ensured everybody was in time. They had to come to the places which we are designated for passport renewal. And this is
Can you hear him? I cannot hear him well.
No, I think he has a problem of connection. Yeah, KDR, I think KDR was saying that he was part and parcel of the team that really pushed hard last time for the diaspora to have voters. And something that he's talking about, I think some people didn't vote because of renewal of the passports were a problem. The distance we have talked about, so other things that I think we were pushing much. I know you were there, I was there myself, was about this 48 county. This must be, I think it should be checked on, because we need to have a very clear information, because even last time when they came to register the voters in diaspora, like Canada, for example, they came 1 week to election, so many people didn't get time, and the distance was so far. I think that these are the things that when Prof comes in, he should talk about. I've seen the Godfather, I've seen Dr. James Odera, and many others on board. Thank you guys for coming, and also try to follow each other as we have this conversation. Back to you, Marge.
Thanks, Hilary. KDR TV, can you now try to speak as you finalize, and then we go to Prof? We couldn't hear you at some point. We had you, but the last.
Can you
Yes, now. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. What I was actually saying is that we did a pilot study on with the migration officials through the OVC, One Voice Consortium organization, whereby we managed to at least send immigration officials who are helping the diaspora to do registration for their renewal of passports and registration of ID cards, and it was very successful. Our team managed to donate some little money, donate some their time. I donated a whole week for this particular project, so I don't actually see a problem or a situation whereby we cannot manage to run a one-day issue. Thing of allowing the diaspora to vote. What we basically need is facilitation. I also backpedaled and said that I sat the Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga some times back and asked him, why is the diaspora not allowed to vote? What he told me is that the mechanisms is there, it's just the implementation which we are having a problem with. And the implementation, when I also sat one of the former MPs, Mr. Caleb Kositany, he told me that the diaspora can vote, but through a motion in parliament whereby more polling stations can be allocated. So this is basically a political issue, as Professor Kivutha Kibwana was trying to allude. So the very best option is that let's sit down together as the diaspora, or let the political class actually listen to the diaspora, but mostly they don't want to listen to us. That's the problem. But if this thing is taken to Parliament, and then IEBC can just be directed to come and help us exercise our constitutional rights, which is enshrined in the Constitution. So let's, as diaspora, also sit down and engage. Let us not be hypocrites, because most of the diaspora people are, Professor, they are hypocrites. Maybe you were in the diaspora a couple of years back, but most of the people nowadays in the diaspora, there's now ethnic chauvinists are really increasing in the diaspora. You listen at what they write in their WhatsApp groups. You really wonder if we are in diaspora or we are actually in some of the villages down in Makueni in Kenya. So that is my that is what I can actually say. And thank you very much, Dr. Saisi Marasa, Dr. Maj, and my friend Gondi, and I see another gentleman here, co-host called Nelson. I had much to say, but because of time, let me give somebody an opportunity. Maybe I'll get some time back again to come and chime in. Thank you so much.
Yes, you will, and thanks for that. Tony, I see you. You're going to go next after Prof. You're going to go, Tony, and then Mukile in that order. But let's give Prof a chance to chime in again. But before, I'd like to give a shout out to Kim from South Africa, the godfather, of course, Netherlands, Abdi, Canada, US, Dera, Finland, I see another Canada, Mutua, David, welcome everyone. I saw somebody from the UK, and so I'm missing ladies in the panel, so do feel free to speak. There was a lady on the panel, the speaker panel, but she dropped. So ladies in the diaspora, if you're down there, feel free to pick the mic. And while we are at it, don't forget to build the network by following each other. Over to you, Prof.
Please, before Prof speaks, Maj, you'll allow one of the ladies, who is really a wonderful pioneer woman on the diaspora, right? She's called Veronica Rotich. So if she'll request for a mic, please allow her to speak. Thank you so much.
Yes, as soon as she does, I'm going to admit her. And I see Alisa all the way from Egypt. Welcome. Egypt is also represented. If you're apart from the diaspora that we haven't heard from, please do request your mic, because this is the opportunity that we have to consolidate our issues and present them and find the way forward. Over to you, Professor.
Again, thank you very much for this very lively conversation, and also for Henry, Saisi, who have said one or two good things, and we just continue to do our work because it's our duty to our country. And I was told that I let you down. I should have stood 2022. I think sometimes there's always time. Let me just say that. I think this idea of like expanding the polling stations and expanding the places where Kenyans are resident, I think that is so central in terms of the realization of the diaspora rights, and particularly the right to vote. Because even in some of the situations where change has come in countries, people did argue, you can't tax me without representation. You can't expect my money to keep on flowing to Kenya if you don't accept that. If you don't accept that I should be represented, and I think it's important to focus on also that philosophy, that philosophical position, so that one continues to build the basis why the constitution and the ordinary laws about diaspora voting and other aspects of diaspora life should be handled. And I think, like I think it was Saisi who said that at the very minimum, where there are where there is an embassy, where there's a consulate, and all those things, at very minimum. But that is still not enough because it really depends. Like if you did a census of who stays, you do that in advance. Then you would be in a position of saying, we will need so many polling stations and where these polling stations will be, and present that information to government. And I, for example, we were told that in Malaysia, 7 countries are represented through Malaysia. So in those 7 countries, why wouldn't there be polling stations? Because if the ambassador from Malaysia goes to those places, where does he or she go to do business? I don't think they do business in a hotel. They must have some kind of office or something. So one can even extend where polling station can be through saying, if you are an embassy representing several countries, then those countries also are eligible, because I would imagine they are representing those countries because there are Kenyans there, and Kenya has an interest there. So this idea of extending where voting can happen is very crucial. And I think the example, we were given by KDTR News of what happened when immigration officials, came over. I think that example shows that actually, even for voting, for registration of voting, it can be done when there is the goodwill to do so, and with even the assistance of diasporians themselves. The example from One Voice Consortium. I think because to make new constituencies, the constitution must be changed. But before even to get representatives, even within counties, let alone at the national level, even within counties, the 47 of them. So before the constitution is changed, there's no reason why political parties cannot themselves commit and say, I'm going to, to nominate Senate and, the National Assembly, somebody from the diaspora. And of course, questions of how will they participate? I think through like how we are talking now, and through, online communication and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to be resident all the time. Or somebody can take some leave and come and represent the diaspora. So ways of doing so virtually and occasionally physically can be determined, and it is how the need is accepted, and therefore the mechanism for implementing something that is good. I don't think that is a difficult thing as such. So that therefore, I think you need to engage political parties and say, they need to nominate, because there's provision for that in Senate and in National Assembly, and you will be interested in working with them if they are so minded. And I think even in terms of like the example we are given by Kenyans in Asian countries, where a Pakistan national is in charge of a consulate. I don't know, why wouldn't a Kenyan be in charge of a consulate abroad? I don't know whether there's a law which says that it must be a foreigner. And even as they're being established and being demoted and being promoted, those embassies to consulates and vice versa, I think there should be public participation of people in the diaspora so that they contribute in terms of saying, this is where we think an embassy should be, this is where we think. And I think it is Willy Mutunga who has argued that when the diaspora policy is being developed, there isn't a lot of public participation by Kenyans here and Kenyans abroad, so that they can say even what is going to be our foreign, policies and all that kind of stuff. So I think your associations have to engage the State Department of Diaspora Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in totality that you input into policies that relate to you and relate to Kenya in terms of the structures of the embassies and the consulates and so on and so forth. And I personally think even the law can get changed so that in every place where there's lots of diaspora people, there can be a representative of the embassy. There can be a representative of the consulate, so that issues of those who are there can, find their way into, the embassy or consulate and so on. Because you being the resource that you are, you would really assist a lot in terms of the management of those foreign offices and even channeling ideas back home for what can happen so that we do better. As a country. The question of agents was answered, and the example of what happened in Dar es Salaam. So to show that in 2017, to show that it is possible to be creative. It is possible to be creative, and of course the question of the renewal of IDs, of passports. Because if that doesn't happen, then that's one way of making sure that even people can register. So that there has to be a way of making sure that it doesn't take forever, it is expeditious. And again, that's a point of negotiation with the relevant embassies, including the ministry back home. I have not looked at the question of the reports which IBC was supposed to take to Parliament, is supposed to take to Parliament. And I think that's something that I will look at to be able to see whether from 2015, as the case said, they have been submitted and what has happened because of this question of progressive. And I really think it's important even to take a case to court, maybe sometimes through Katiba Institute, to really ask when does progressive end? Because it can continue forever, and people will never be assisted and so much and so on. We are now at the point where the panel, which will choose the commissioners, is being appointed, and I think to the extent that is possible, the diaspora should get involved, because I think if there are public hearings for the panel, if there will be public hearings for the commissions, so that you look at the people and then you ask them, what will you do? And even if you have some lawyers who you say, why don't you, ask them, what will you do to ensure that the diaspora vote is implemented according to the constitution, so that you get that issue on the table as the new commission comes into being. Many times the president comes to the countries where you are, ministry officials, government senior officials. This is something when they call you, because sometimes they call you after they have done whatever it is that they went to do. They call you for some evening and stuff like that. And even within the embassies themselves, when they call you, you must keep on hammering on this particular point, so that what comes back to Kenya is that this is a very important aspect now. And if it's not handled well, it can even influence how the elections will go, because if you make the diaspora angry, then you may be able to, it might not be a good thing for you. I had said the question of motion in Parliament, that would be a good thing in Senate and in National Assembly, but the IBC has what it takes to do what is right according to the law, so that it will just be some pressure and a reminder. It is not as if the law is not adequate, like the former Prime Minister said. The law the law exists, except aspects of, for example, external voting, which is not physical. And that's something to be explored, as I tried to say earlier, to be explored. What other ways can people vote so that it is easier, register to vote and vote so that it is easier for them to do so. Just to finalize, I had said from some of the research that I did to prepare for this meeting, told me that the people in the diaspora are less likely to vote on ethnic basis as compared to people who are back here. So I was in the diaspora 76, 77, and 83, 88. So I don't know whether there is that ethnic chauvinism. Sometimes I think you shouldn't hit yourself too hard. Sometimes when people go abroad, they are closer, there's that, but I just wanted to say that some of my research told me otherwise, but you are the ones who are there and you know better.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Prof. For your input and for responding to us. As you suggested that we should really work closely with the diaspora, the Ministry of the, State Diaspora, Ministry of, I also never get that name together, just like KDR TV. And the unfortunate event is that we are here in the space and we do not care about political affiliations. But sometimes a lot of the diasporans tend to believe that the ministry want to work with people who are affiliated with the ruling government. And so this is how we sent, we had really finalized a diaspora document, policy document with David Ogega and other diasporans globally. And we submitted this document to the PS in an email and also copied two of very senior official members. And these members were diasporan who works closely with the government. Nevertheless, the PS snapped this email while we were really requesting her to come to the meeting. She did not come. Neither of her teams also responded. So we ended up doing a meeting on our own for the diasporans regarding the diaspora policy document. But later they were looking for diasporans to come and give feedback. And I can tell you for sure that not so many diasporans even know about this document. So that is unfortunately the kind of approach sometimes that the ministry takes. And we just heard about it by chance when they were doing it. And then, so you're like, okay, we are part of it, but we are the stakeholders, but we're not getting involved. But we nevertheless said, we're here, get us involved. We even wrote an email and have that documented. It has not been looked into. And those who went ahead, it was not a huge number, but some of them have come back to also say that the document is now being written, finalized in Nairobi as we speak. Not by diasporans, but with officials in Nairobi. So that's how serious they take our issues when it comes to diaspora welfare. I mean, for our remittances, it's fine. they want to take it seriously, but for our issues, it's really not taken very seriously. So we need to improve on that, and we hope that it's going to be an improvement. Tony and then Mukile.
Thank you so much, Dr. for this opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you so much for all and sundry and for the contributions that has been going on in this platform. It is indeed notable that diaspora cannot be ignored whenever we talk about any advancement of any democracy, be it in whatever part of the world it is. As we talk of diaspora voting, I want to start by stating some figures here to justify my submissions. Is that in the year 2023, the diaspora remittance was $4.19 billion. In simple terms, when you do calculate with the exchange rate by then, which was oscillating between 140, 50, and sometimes to 160, it comes to about 600 billion Kenya shillings. So you can see that's even more, almost 1.5 times the county allocations. The whole 47 counties, the allocations for all of them is less by 200 billion compared to diaspora remittance. So what does that tell you? It tells you that diaspora cannot be ignored. We are the one who actually, as someone who has some background in trading financial instruments, we are the one who is keeping the dollar on check, like making the Kenya shillings have some stability. So that remittance alone tells you that this is a constituency that cannot be ignored. This is a group of people that is a force to reckon with. And when we talk about diaspora being categorically being categorized as county number 48, this is one of the strong bases that we need to base our argument on. That 47 counties combined, they are actually taking from the treasury 400 billion. Diaspora alone is actually remitting 600 billion over and above. I mean, when we talk about voting here, we look at it from a very we are looking at it from a very diverse perspective, relating even in policy making, relating also in representation, relating also in the way we contribute to the growth of our economy. So, if if like when you consider the last elections in 2022, there were only, I think, 3 polling stations in the whole of United States. I'm not sure what was there in Germany, what was there in other countries like in Asia or whatever. But you find that in the United States we had only 3 polling stations, I guess. I actually had to bring a group of people here together so that I can convince them. We go register vote to vote in Washington D.C. and also go to vote actually. And if you consider some states like Seattle, Texas, and some other states in the Midwest, they have a high percentage of Kenyans. As one of the contributors, speakers pointed out, that the law requires each polling station to have not more than 700 members or registered voters. So that tells you, for instance, in the East Coast, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, Washington, D.C., there are so many people there. So I would make a proposal that if we can have at least, maybe we bundle these states, 3 of them, maybe have a polling station, we will be able to reach out to thousands of people who could not make it to go register and vote. Look at a place like Seattle, Washington. That place is full of Kenyans, thousands of them. I don't see many people paying air ticket to go and vote somewhere in California, in New York, all the way from West Coast. Very few patriotic Kenyans can do that. So if we have a polling station there that will cover that area, we bundle states like 3 of them and then be able to look at central place that those people can actually go there and vote. It will be able to reach people very easily. Same applies to people in Europe. We can have the same strategy. Same applies to people in Asia and whatever. Because we as diasporans also want to make our voice heard by electing people who we know they are going to change the narrative. Number 2, and I remember William Ruto actually, when he was doing campaigns, when he came to Washington, D.C. last year, I think 2022 thereabouts, 2022 or 2021 there, when he was doing his final campaigns here, he actually pointed out and said that the diaspora is going to be given a whole ministry I was seated in front, so I heard him loud and clear. He said diaspora will be given a whole ministry in his government, only to be shortchanged later. And diaspora was only put as a department, I think, in foreign affairs or something like that. So we need also to address this, because we have so many things that the diaspora need to address. It is not only when they need our money that we matter. It's not only when they need us to further their campaigns that we matter. It's not only when they want us to send our remittances that we matter. One of the Gen Zs during the recent demonstrations, he said that, and I would support that statement, that when they want to tax us, they compare us with Singapore. But when we ask for accountability, they compare us with South Sudan and Somalia. These are some of the things that they need to address. We need diaspora to be categorized as a county, number 48, which will be able to address all the issues that we are fighting them, trying to solve, which they can't. Look at William Ruto has been going around the world saying that he's looking for jobs for these people. It is us who are in the United States, who are in the European area, who are in Asia, who are in Australia. Who knows where all these positions, all these opportunities are? We are more vast and understand the policies that govern these places. We are well informed in trying to inform the government and trying to give the policy guidelines in all these issues.
Tony,
So,
would you please try to land? Thank you.
all right, 1 minute, I finish. So we need this diaspora department, this diaspora county, to have its own officials and all that, so that we can be able to address this issue of jobs. And this diaspora issue, this diaspora ministry or whatever, or county, will be able to address even the jobs, the people who are suffering out there, people who are suffering, especially in the Middle East. It is these politicians who take people there, they let them suffer there. It is these politicians who have the agencies which swindle people money in Kenya. We have people who are suffering. They are told, give us money. We are going to take you to Canada. We are going to take you to Europe. We are going to take you these places, and you give them money. Then they vanish in thin air. It is this diaspora council or the diaspora ministry or diaspora county that will have its own officials who are going to address these issues, so that our people back home, they will not be swindled. They will not be shortchanged. They will not be taken for granted. People have lost money. We have contributed money. We have given people money to go and fight, take to agencies, and they get jobs abroad, only for them to be shortchanged. So we need this ministry as much. We need this county with officials as late as now, because it is important, and those legal experts can tell us how we can go about it and how we can incorporate this without going through the through the long route of maybe referendums and all that, because it is possible.
Yeah.
If we have a position of a CS of a prime minister right now, which is not in the constitution, and there's someone there, I believe it is also possible to have this in our constitution. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tony. Hilary, do you want to say something before Mukile comes in?
No.
Okay.
I was saying that, but there's a question here, Maj. I think whoever is coming in should answer this question. Is being asked that do you think that we can have a probability of activating 100% online voting through government site, or having absentee mail-in voting? I think whoever is coming, is this possible as they come in?
Thanks.
Thank you much.
Mukile, you're next. And I see other people asking for the mic. So just try to take 3 to 5 minutes. Then after that, we're going to reduce it to 3, and because we don't want to have very long spaces, But Mukile, take a go. Yeah.
And can I go after Mukile, Marge? So, just a minute.
Yes, you can, David. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marge. I may not even take more than that because I'm still at work. Thank you. And just to answer Hillary, our Kenyan election, especially the presidential election, is based on trust. And that ballot has a lot of trust issues. it is possible to do this technology voting progressively, but looking at how tens and even Prof can tell you that vote of the president is normally one of the main issues in our country. We are heading there. I hope it can be implemented. IBC improved in terms of technology last time, although there were really a lot of hiccups here and there. So if we can implement whatever that is happening in the country, it can be possible to progress to the diaspora. Just quick one, Prof, I just want to, I think you are alive to Article 90 of the Kenyan Constitution, which actually outlines on how the political parties will be assigned in Parliament proportionally. Also, Article 97 explains how the Parliament should have, the members number of the 290 constituency, 290, then we'll have 47 women reps. Then we have 12 people will be nominated. Also, 98, we talk about the Senate nominations and how it should be structured. Article 177 explain about our counties. I'm bringing that because one of the speakers talked about how can you bring representation. We will wish, to be honest, I will wish even to have a full-fledged county called diaspora, but that will require us to amend the constitution because our constitution defines a county, a constituency, as the landmass of the Republic of Kenya. So when you divide the landmass of the Republic of Kenya, that's how you get a constituency in 290 sections. Then the county you divide it in 47 sections. So, and you realize diaspora is a unique place. I will, okay, yeah. So that is the main thing on our end. That, however, we can go through that by doing an amendment on the Elections Act, Section 36, to be honest, where it gives the nomination to the people from women, disability, and others. So we can, the marginalized section, actually, we can remove marginalized and bring in the diaspora so that you can have a representative. Or the marginalized, at least one person can be the diaspora and the other one, the other group. So that is an area we can work on and get representation progressively before you go to the full-fledged. Another part I wanted to touch is about the voting, as people have been saying. Today, there was a sitting in Parliament, in the Senate, about the nomination party. They're amending the Election Act. If you go to the website, you'll get that supplementary memo that is there. They're amending the Election Act. They will send it to the Parliament. So I just want us to be careful there. We can also go in and amend it, do our own proposals so that once they take it to the floor of the House, since they are already in the process, then actually we can succeed in amending the Constitution. Yeah.
Thank you, Mukile. I think Mukile is working. We'll give him back the 1 minute later. David, take a go.
Oh, yes. Thanks again. So really, I just want to follow back on what you said and a few of our contributors have said today. Really, Marge, as you alluded to earlier, a lot of what we've done, especially with the diaspora policy, you and I have worked on this thing for so long with other folks. But my takeaway with that is that we don't think that the government in place today takes us as seriously as they should or as seriously as they've portrayed themselves to do. There's a lot of charades, excuse my French, but that's what I take it to be. Like the speaker before said, they had promised us a full-fledged ministry for the diaspora. Of course, we didn't get that. As much as we give the president credit for at least moving the needle in terms of administratively representing government, we're still not getting the value of what he promised. We just had that call they did that you spoke about that we were not even aware of. I participated in that call. And a lot of what I heard of the discussions that went on in that call, it was just unbelievable. The things that were being made up. I raised questions, and several other participants raised questions on who among the diaspora actually participated in the creation of the diaspora policy, the draft that they wanted us to rubber stamp. And none of them could explain. None of the audience could say, yes, I was a part of helping create this document that we're now discussing. And that tells you how much they take us for. They don't take us seriously as they should, unless, of course, it's about the ATM, the remittances that they keep talking about. And so the reason I raise this is that we keep saying, oh, we need to press on this, or we need to say this, or this is where we can participate. But it's not so much that we're not participating or that we don't want to participate. We just don't have a real partner that want to participate with us, especially if they think that you're anti-government for whatever reason. So we need to bridge that. The second piece I wanted to speak of is, the diaspora voting. I think Professor Kivuta said that it's not so much that there are no laws in place. I think we have enough laws, if you ask me. The issue is administrative. In other words, how are the organizations or the authorities, in this case, the IEBC, that is, supposed to be handling this, they're mishandling it. They're mistreating us. And that's because they just have too much discretion at their disposal, where they can interpret, and create rules or regulations, so to speak. For example, what I said earlier, that they say, oh, you can only vote in an embassy, and you have 3 or 4 in the United States. So by default, they've only allowed 2,000 or 2,800 voters to vote, because that's what just the law says. It's 700 people per polling station. So we need to really press. It's not so much about the laws themselves, it's to put a caveat and hold these people responsible or accountable, and restrain them from creating nonsensical laws or rules that don't help advance the human rights or the rights of us in the diaspora. And finally, I think I see Professor Kibwana here. Dr. Rasaisi and I were part of the last event in Atlanta honoring Mwalimu, and we heard you speak. And I just want to take this opportunity to extend to you personally. I just don't have your contacts, otherwise I'll send it to you directly. We have a diaspora summit coming up in in September, end of September, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We would love to have you participate. We've invited several folks, some of whom you might know. If I have a way to reach out to you directly, please let me know. But I'm extending to you the invitation to be a part of that. It's part of the narrative from the diaspora when we hold these summits or conferences. And by the way, this extends to all of you on the call. If you can make it to Minneapolis, Minnesota on September 27 and 28, we would really, really love to have you. And part of what we have, just to a primer, or just to say what we have programmed, in the last conference we had in Atlanta, which was last year, we had our friend Okiya Tata and our friend Dr. Manduku, MP from Nyaribari Masaba. What they said is that they were going to introduce Diaspora Act 2024 that would address the issue.
David, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm almost done.
Yeah, and I think David, I think you're doing good, but I think that let us focus the topic. Then the announcement will be done
Okay.
immediately after the topic. That will be good.
No, that's fine. Let me finish. It's just because I didn't know if I would have another opportunity, but I'm done in terms of that.
You'll have opportunity for announcements. I think that will be better.
No,
Thank you.
I'm not making an announcement. I'm just finishing up. If it's okay, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's all right. Please finish.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to push the Diaspora Act so that we all have participation, because a lot of what is being discussed here from a diaspora policy standpoint, unless it's actually enacted and codified into law, probably would have not much meaning. We've had all these policies for years and years that are just collecting dust in some places in Nairobi. So that's really all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And as I just, go on. Abdi, just a moment. I just want to say that as I highlight, actually, we indeed took our time to write the policy document with many other diasporans. And as David alludes to, really, and this is a recorded call, but the ministry tends to just not work with all Kenyans, the Ministry of Diaspora. And as we are here, and Mukile is here, Mukile is a friend of mine, Mukile is a diasporan who is aligned to the government. But when he wants to say something, he's part of ours. We include him, and that's why he's on the speaker panel. And in that spirit, we'd like to really, Mukile, give that information back to the ministry that they're missing a lot on the, there's a powerhouse of diasporans here just waiting. But no, they never talk to them because, some of them do not show their political alliance or something like that. So, but anyway, let's proceed. So as we proceed now, we hope to find ways of really just getting to solutions. So as we proceed now, we have Bazuri, then Abdi in that order. Sorry, Masharia, then Bazuri, then Abdi. Yeah. Masharia, take a go.
Such giving me a chance.
I'm gonna give you a chance, but Masharia has been waiting for long. But now he cannot hear me.
I think he cannot hear. Yeah, Masharia, can you hear Maj?
No. Then let's go to Kimani, Dr. Kimani wa Karangu Bazuri, and then Abdi, then Kolo in that order, and then Professor can chime in again, and then we try to really, because the people in the panel have spoken, we try to add 2 to 3 more speakers, and then we finalize because we don't want the space to take too long. So, Daktari Kimani wa Karangu.
Asante sana Maj, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. And again, I want to thank all of you that are here. And of course, we know what is happening back home. And we want to give our gratitude to all people that are fighting to the struggles that we are going through. But today we have a different topic about the IEBC and the voting rights of the people in the diaspora. Now, in 2022, I did participate. Okay, for those who are not aware, I'm in Canada. And in 2022, we did actually got Canada added to the list of polling stations for the presidential election voting purposes. And I did push with other leaders here to have a sitting with the IEBC officials at that time. And this did send to commissioners, that is Professor Guyo, I believe, and Irene Masit, I believe. Yes, we had a few sittings and we had all the diasporas coming together. And our push and our intentions were to have as many polling stations as possible, as many people here may have expressed that desire, because we do understand 700 per polling stations. But those who have got a close relationship with geography will understand that Canada is the second largest country in the world, and therefore meaning the population of the people is sparsely populated, to say the least. Therefore, Kenyans are also embedded with all those environments, and therefore we did not have as many polling stations that we wanted them to have. which was a contrary to what we thought would have happened, because prior to the pushing of the 2022 poll registration of voters, we had done something that was popular and then it became very unpopular. That is the Huduma number registration, where we had to set up offices in our own offices in in places that are recognized by law, in Canada and other places. And we had so many people registering and coming to register through those Huduma number and all those things. Unfortunately, during the sitting with the IEBC commissioners at the time, when we brought the question of why is it that we cannot have so many polling stations, the sentiment that was shared is that, while voting is a good thing, it may not be a mandatory for all of us to vote. And we almost all of us got confused by that sentiment, because I think IBC was somehow lazy in the way they were, and not in this case, I'm not talking of the particular commissioners that came, but I'm talking about the general feeling of the commission itself. Because when you tell people that, fine, it is, we can do whatever the constitution says, but it is not a mandatory for all of you to participate in that civic exercise, to me is defeatist and lazy, because as a commission, they should be pushing for more people to participate in this thing that makes them become commissioners or become, whatever they are within the commission. And therefore, that one rattled many people in so many ways. So as we move forward with policy making and other law-facing policies, these are things that we need to put into practice. When you talk about the diaspora, we have to be very careful, or not careful though, mindful of what is happening. So we have very few consulates, and I still have very less time. We do have consulates that are there, but they're not as many as we would want to have them, and they're not as functional as they should be. And therefore, people do not like associating with those ones, to say the least. And of course, most of the people that participate or that operate in those consulates are there for voluntary purposes. What I would say moving forward, the way forward, because sometimes when we point out to the problems, we have to point out to the solutions that we may be having. We Kenyans in the diaspora are very organized. And in each and every country, there are those we call the Kenya Community Associations. These are very important organs that could help the Department of State or Diaspora State, whatever it is, the State Department of the Diaspora, to organize and mobilize these and connect to the IEBC as a commission to be able to mobilize as many people as possible, because that would make us very, very, very key. And moving forward, I think that would help us to increase the numbers and also rally behind everybody who is there. But again, why can't the diasporians form their own political party and float members that they would wish to represent? Thank you so much, and much to you.
Thanks so much, Dr. You land in a very good good note. I think that can be also, we can check on that point at a different, time point for those who are actually interested in the active politics. I really applaud you for that. So, of course, we can also look into that. But I see Professor is still in and taking the questions. So let's go to Abdi.
Okay,
Please, let's allow Kolo and then you. 2 minutes each. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Kolo?
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to also engage. To me, I believe that the most important thing in any country, it is the National Register of Persons. This is where you get your ID, this is where you get your passports, and even banks are given unlimited access to this to be able to verify details when you go to open an account. So it can be a very easy way on which we can do elections, whereby you just have like a portal, you register through eCitizen, you are verified, and you go to the poll. You just let's say like vote electronically. On that day, it is open, and when you vote, your name is ticked off from the register. So this will reduce most of the problems that we have in Kenya by nearly around, let's say around 98%, because there will be no issues of cheating. Results will be timely. So I think as we are pushing for um, for voting rights. These are the things we maybe like we should push our country to adopt. And even if you look at it, most of countries, they are now adopting these biometrics for the kids. So some of the countries, they tell you the future kids will be seeing, will be feeling, even without them being present, because they are taking the biometrics. And in Kenya, ID has always been the constant issue which each and every regime comes, tries to change, tries to, let's say, like upgrade and do something, let's say, like different. But we have never seen concrete results too. So to me, I'll close by saying that we need to really embrace that digital way of doing things, biometrics, and doing the election. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Abdi?
Thank you, Maj. Can you
Loud
hear
and
me? Thank you for organizing this space again. For the previous speaker, the person who was here in Toronto was Professor Gulie, just a correction. And I voted here in 2022 in Toronto. And I believe the Kenyan Constitution guarantees all of us abroad to vote. And voting also fulfills our constitutional duties. I will start saying the diaspora significantly contribute to the Kenyan economy. I think in 2023, we contributed 3.7 billion remittances. And this inclusion in the political process is, I think, should be mandatory. So I will talk about the current state of diaspora voting. I read from the IEBC report. I read a preliminary report. The IEBC cited in facilitating voting rights, such as registration issues, limited polling stations, insufficient political will from the host countries and whatever, and from the government. I believe these are hurdles that can be overcome by reducing the bureaucratic barriers, establishing more accessible voter registration centers in diaspora locations. They can also utilize technology for online voter registration and electronic voting, because they are doing the biometrics even for the passports now. And involving Kenyan embassies and consulate in voting process by providing the necessary resource and information. Because there was lack of money and there was lack of logistical issues. This was one of the reasons they cited in their report. The other thing I will look at is also a legal and policy framework. I think we should have a comprehensive legal and policy framework to support and facilitate the diaspora voting. Inconsistent policies and clear guidelines currently hinder the participation of the diaspora in voting. The other thing about was accurate data collection and management of diaspora population to tailor the voting facilities and resources effectively. We had to be honest and to be fair, here in Canada, we had a very low voter turnout. And it's very difficult to tailor these resources everywhere. In the previous election, there has been low voter turnout, and this highlighted the need to boost participation. So I will encourage the diasporans to actively engage in Kenyan politics also. Many have said we can join political parties and advocate for our rights. And I also agree that we can have a dedicated diaspora seat in the Kenyan parliament or establishment of diaspora council to represent our interest. So I'll look at the challenges we faced and what can be done now, because we have seen from these reports what the challenges were. And now is many diaspora, lack of awareness is one thing. Many diaspora members were unaware there was even voting going on in 2022. The other thing is the registration process that can be complex and cumbersome, and then few polling stations. These are the things. So I will do is call for mobilization, urge the diaspora community to mobilize, organize, and advocate for their rights. And this is my take on this issue.
Thanks, Abdi. Nelson, take a go, and then we put Joanne through, because we've had a lot of ladies coming to the speaker but dropping. So finally, Joanne has made it. So Nelson, take a go, and then bring in Joanne Kanini.
Thank you, Marge. This is a great discussion. I just wanted to give my small contribution. In the recent few weeks, we've seen how the Gen Zs have agitated for their, the things, the issues that we wanted to be addressed by the government, and most of them have been actually addressed. So I think that we need also to look at this issue of diaspora voting and polling stations from this angle. And if we can, get a good support base from the diaspora, we can actually make things move. We also, pressurized the Ministry of Sports and the government to not bring joyriders to Paris. And today you saw the list that they gave. It's very lean. And so I think pressure really works. And I think if we pressure the government, polling stations, and everybody is going to be able to vote from wherever they are. Just we need to increase the pressure. And as you can see, like 229 change this so that the pressure increases for the government for them to act.
Dropped. I don't know why. That's unfortunate. So let's go.
Can I take a place?
Sorry, who's speaking?
Muhammad.
Muhammad, yes, you were next. Muhammad, then SK Musa, and then Justice.
Yeah, thank you much. You gave me a chance after a long time. I'm
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I'm actually in Canada, and I agree with the previous speakers what they said. Actually, the last time they gave us only Toronto as a polling station, and I'm actually 5,000 kilometers away from Toronto polling station, and I'm actually 5,000 kilometers away from Toronto. You can imagine. So these guys don't know Canada is equivalent to a third of the entire Africa put together. So that's a challenge. I agree with those guys. There's a speaker who mentioned the need to create county number 48. I personally don't share that view. We already have too many units, too many a bloated parliament, 47 counties, 20,000 MCAs, and nothing is working for us in Kenya. The basic, fundamentals of governance has completely failed. Even the voting we're asking for, even if we are given polling stations, the right number of polling stations in the right places, the system of governance and democracy has failed in Kenya. So even if we vote, nothing is changing. Now we're talking about the right representation for democracy, but the mother country, the whole system is not working. So I think it's better we direct our efforts to, help the Gen Zs fix Kenya first, then walk backwards, and then agitate for better incentive for the diasporans, because even if we are given more voting rights, more representation, the truth is things are not working in Kenya. I will maybe suggest if we could ask for a constitutional office created through an act of parliament, something like the Kenyan High Commission, Kenyan Human Rights Commission is a constitutional office. So a position that cannot be in the hands of the president of the day at that time, something like that. But to ask for county number 48.